Happy Hump Day, everybody. Welcome back to Brown Bag Bets. Powered by BetSperts, we are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christensen, and joining me as always, back from his little BetSperts golf respite, Mr. Andy Molitor. And as Andy and I promised, we need some help. We're getting into basically the dog days of summer where neither one of us really handicaps all these sports that are going on. So brought on one of our friends from the NBA chat who's actually here to talk a little bit of WNBA, Mr. Clive Bixby. Clive, how are you on a Wednesday morning?
Oh, doing great. Thanks for having me, you guys. Looking forward to talking a little WNBA.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so mostly NBA, like when you're not doing this, what do you all just I'm not as familiar with your entire repertoire outside of NBA. Are you betting other stuff than that, or is it a lot of NBA? And I mean, everybody bets NFL, I guess.
So last year it was actually a lot of MLB this time of
Sure.
year, um, and then things with the ball happening early because normally I don't get involved in the season until 5 or 10 games in anyway. That's just kind of always been my method, um, and I'm like, this is just all off. And last year was such a grind with baseball. I figured I wanted to try something new. I bet a little WNBA last year, not too much, but I wanted to see how much my process from NBA would kind of carry over.
Yeah, that would be interesting to hear. And that's what I was going to kind of ask you. I think you approach this mostly from a fresh perspective. So, what kind of is your handicapping style? Are you more of an originator, maybe a little bit more of a technical analysis type modeler? And then how did that transition go? Can you just take an NBA model and just dump some WNBA data in it and everything's okay?
So when I started handicapping or betting, whatever term you want to use, it all started on the technical side. A lot of line moves, just understanding the market. And I think that was a good way to learn because then I was kind of able to pick up a few patterns and maybe reverse engineer a little bit of stuff. Whereas the NBA, you know, I was completely just originating my own numbers. And WNBA, I'm doing the same now. But last year with baseball, it started the same way, where I kind of tried to understand the market, and then slowly but surely came up with my own numbers, and then it translated that way. Um, so the funny thing was, or is, I track everything that I have on BetStamp, and if you look at my CLV right now, it looks pretty good. The results, however, are not matching up, which happens. I mean, it's a small sample. I think I have about 40 or 45 games this season. And that's the thing with the WNBA. It's so much shorter of a season. There's 12 teams. You have a Wednesday with 3 games, and that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I mean that's what we picked today because 3 games. Wow, what a big day! I mean, is it easier or harder as if there's less games? Because I mean, I know sometimes, and we joked about it on the show. Anytime there was like a 12 NBA game slate, I'd have one pick, and there was 3 games, I'd have four or something goofy like that. I mean, do you think that makes it harder or more or easier actually just to have less to look at?
I think if you're disciplined, it's okay. I think if you're somebody who's not and you're looking for a lot of action, you're going to force some things. I don't feel I've been doing that, but sometimes the matchups just don't lend themselves to placing a lot of bets. Sometimes you do go on a 4 game slate. You only bet one total or one side. It does happen. And definitely the NBA thing did not translate completely over. I've definitely made some adjustments.
That used to happen too with like college, and it does still happen with college basketball. Because you run into your Saturday where it's like, hey, there's 120 games. I know I'm going to have volume today just because of math. And then, Sundays are light and it is what it is, but there would be some Mondays, and Mondays used to be different. It's a little trickier now with some of the games they throw in. And just the past few years, there's been so many rescheduled games with COVID stuff. But Mondays used to be like 4 MEAC games and 4 like SWAC games, and then like one random, America East. It was like 10 games. None of them were from, even middle-sized mid-majors, just 10 real garbage games. I knew like Mondays, it's like, yeah, sometimes I just don't bet. I don't have a single bet in this day. And then every once in a while, it's like, man, I'm betting 4 out of 10 games. That feels bad. I don't know. I'd finally talked myself out of that being like bad. It's like, no, if you have an edge, you have an edge. If you don't, you don't. Like I shouldn't worry too much about like betting 40% of the board today, like some sort of DGen. But I just let that go a long time ago. So it's wild that like 3 games is a big slate though.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything in particular you've noticed that's different from the NBA? Like, because you said it's not an exact sort of one for one. Is there anything that's pointed out to you, like particularly that you've noticed is what is different?
So a lot more deviation from what I expected in terms of like in some of my numbers. So like the swings of the top and bottom of a team's range of what they can do seems wider. And again, these are just observations. I haven't, quote unquote proven anything, mathematically, but just from what I'm seeing. Also, a lot more difficult to get information. So, like lineup stuff, not that that's a huge part of what I did with the NBA, but I think you could, at, at least I thought it was reasonable. You had certain games where you think a star would sit, right? So on those days, you wait, figure out what the lineup truly is, unless it's something in your favor and you like the other side and you kind of want to free roll maybe a star sitting. But you don't really have that in the WNBA all that much. The Las Vegas Aces had a player sit for personal reasons 2 nights ago, and nobody really had any idea who was going to start for them, and it was a surprise. So it's that kind of stuff. I think you're dealing with a little bit more. I don't know if imperfect information is the right word, but like not as predictable when it comes to lineups and minutes as I thought it would be.
So Shams and Woj aren't tweeting out stuff. There's not like an underdog WNBA account that's letting you know up to the second who's playing. So
No,
yeah, that's
unfortunately,
making it
no.
hard.
No. There's
I
a
was
couple
gonna
people
say-
that you could follow that are okay, but sometimes you're getting stuff just late, and the
Well, and
market
it's-
moves aren't as big.
if
either.
you're looking for it too, it's like just the same as the NBA where you get to know like Pop does this sort of thing. Like this is like a spot where man he would normally rest some stars here, and certain team even in baseball like it's something that happened to me. Like I finally bought tickets and went up to a Twins game this year, hadn't been for a while, and our manager tends if he sits one, he sits them all. Like he just punts on the game. So like Correa, Buxton, and Urshela were all out that day. It was like the B squad still won somehow, but the B squad was in that day. So certain managers, certain coaches have like tendencies, and you can kind of it's a lot easier to have the information fall upon you later on in the day if you're kind of actively looking for it, I suppose.
Yeah, and like for totals, I haven't been able to really figure out who the coaches are that maybe continue to foul late. You know what I mean? Versus, the NBA, it's kind of a little bit more well known, and the teams that are going to give up relatively early. So I haven't been able to pick up on that yet either. If I could ever incorporate play-by-play data into kind of my process, I think that would be a little bit easier, but just not there yet.
That makes sense. I mean, you look at it, we're only about 18 games through the season now. It sounds like a small sample size, but that's halfway through the year at this point. It is a very short season, and I wonder if that lends to like some of the variance and stuff you're talking about. But we do have 3 games tonight, and you mentioned you've done pretty well from a CLV perspective. It looks like you've got a point here on the one team and about 5 cents on the other. So 1-1, 0-2.
The way things have been going 0-2, but that's just that to me that's variance. It just
Andy
happens.
thought that was mean.
I don't think
It happens, man. Like
it does. And I don't, looking back, there were no picks that I made. I was like, oh, that was really, really dumb. I just think that's the way that particular game played out. I mean, there's a distribution of outcomes that happens, and I'm just on the wrong end of it. I think I'll learn more.
Well, again, it's a really short season. I mean, 36 games. There's only 12 teams, and like you said, you've only bet 40 games so far. I mean, you look at anybody's log. I'm sure any of the 3 of us there's some pretty ugly 40 game stretches in there, regardless of what sport it is.
Oh God, December for me for college basketball was absolutely terrible, despite how much closing line value I got, and I got a lot. It was just really, really bad. Worst month I've ever had since I've been doing this. I'll call it semi-professionally.
yeah, if a bunch of influential money agrees with you and they're wrong for the same reasons, like CLV is going to look awful good and never come up. And it's true too with the CLV is a spectrum. We've talked about that. Like the line people, oh, this prop move or this prop move. I'm like, yeah, props are. You can't treat that like an NFL side or total for CLV, but
there's not a market maker. For
yeah,
that.
yeah, smaller markets are different, but I tend to believe the WNBA Steam, the WNBA CLV is maybe more predictive than markets that size, because a lot of the people that are betting it they're not WNBA fans. Like the WNBA hardcore fans aren't betting into the market. It is people who are trying to take advantage of a softer market. So I tend to believe that steam in WNBA, especially totals, especially derivatives. I've seen some first half totals move like wildfire. Like that stuff is predictive, and you'll end up on the right side of that in the long run.
Yeah, I think so too. And the fact that at least lines aren't moving against me hard is a nice indicator too. I understand there are people that could win without getting significant CLV, but I don't think there's anybody that's winning huge. That's the market's moving against them 3 out of 4 games.
Yeah, that's always big. But let's jump into the games tonight again. We'll start with the Las Vegas Aces. You were able to get them at -110, seeing -115 against the Seattle Storm. What do you like about Vegas?
This is actually more an anti-Seattle bet. I mean, I like Vegas. They've been a pretty solid team all year. Very good offensively. I don't think I think they're underrated defensively of how good they could be. If let's just say, I know Tina Charles is joining Seattle tonight. For anybody who knows who Tina Charles is, I don't know how big of a deal that's really going to be when it comes down to it. But I think Seattle's been a team that's been bet a lot by people when I've kind of watched line moves, and the results aren't really coming to fruition. And I don't really have great numbers on them either. So I don't think Seattle's going to do particularly well offensively tonight. So, and Vegas has been a good road team. They're not really affected negatively by that based on the numbers that I have. So I think there's just a small edge. I think that the Aces should probably be maybe a 1.5, 2-point favorite at the least. But right now, it looks like it's swung back a little bit towards Seattle. But I'm comfortable with my pick.
I could dig that.
I saw the Tina Charles news. I don't understand how contracts work in the WNBA, or maybe in all the sports. Honestly, it's so complicated. But it's just like it was like they mutually parted ways on a contract. You said, we'll both forget this ever happened.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that either, but from some of the things that I've read, I guess in Phoenix there was a little bit of I don't know if they were personality conflicts or whatever, but it seems like there were a couple players that weren't upset that she left. And she's apparently been a legend, so I don't know. When you let somebody like that go, just let them go, there's probably a reason, something going on.
Yeah, you wonder what behind the scenes. We've seen that in other sports too, but
There'll be a Hulu documentary about it.
oh yeah.
Connecticut Sun, you grabbed them at 3. It looks like they're +2 right now. Do you still like them at 2? And again, what do you like about Connecticut against Chicago tonight?
So I like this game more than I like the Aces game. I would say if I were to split up, units, this would be probably it would be a 2-1. I think Connecticut should probably be about a 1.5, 2-point favorite, even on the road versus Sky. I know the Sky are a very good team. Connecticut has had a couple of not great games offensively, and Chicago has had this ability, it seems like, to not show up occasionally. So I don't think this is a really this should not be a situation where the Sky are really favorites just because they're at home. I think Connecticut's the slightly better team. I don't think the home and away thing is going to matter all that much. There were a couple books that had this even at +4 earlier today, and they had the money line at +140 or above. I think this line should probably be at worst pick 'em, but I actually think Connecticut should probably be a slight favorite.
I can dig it. So you're taking the 3. Did you play any money line, or do you generally just play the spread?
Sometimes I play the money line. Today I did not. If anybody follows my Twitter, they might have seen that I did post I think I kind of missed the boat on that one, but I'm okay with it.
Makes perfect sense.
I know. I used to. That's kind of right in that range where you agonize over it a little. Like it's enough points where it's like, man, if this is a close game at the end, I'm going to be kicking myself. I'm sitting on a money line if it comes down to like a final shot. But I mean, I used to get again with college basketball. I get that. Oh, like, did you bet this team's money line? They won straight up. Like, no, they were 12-point dogs. Like, this is an outlier. Like, this is long tail. Like, go look at the rest of the games. Like, we won a bunch of these 10, 12-point dogs by losing by 8 and they're fouling late. It's like we don't do that. It's dangerous. But I think I just eventually ended up where it was like basically plus 1.5 or less. I was done with. Like, that's a money line play. I just said I'm gonna draw a line in the sand. I did a little bit of math and said this is where I draw it at, and if they're getting 2 points, I'll take them.
Yeah, this could have been. I also considered just splitting it, doing half a unit on the spread and then a half a unit on the money line. I was just, I'm going to keep it simple today, just +3 and let it fly.
It's only one bet to track instead of two. Much easier.
It's true.
Honestly, too. I know, Alex, that stupid round robin tennis thing I did. I forgot about that for the tracker. That's 10 bets.
It's exhausting.
I just put it on one line. Honestly, I said this happened and it was one line, and the odds were, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
And some places don't even list them all. Like, it's just one lump somewhere. It's like,
they
here's
your
just 3-teamers, here's your 4-teamers.
Yep.
Like, and some places you get like, I have one site now where it's like 3 pages of round robins.
Oh, the old 5 dimes used to do that, where if you did a big round robin, it would list like 70 bets on there instead of consolidating it like Bookmaker did. So, but I digress. And yeah, Clive, appreciate you coming on. We are dying for other things to bet on, as there's the NBA, the NHL is gone, and it's just too far to get out. So it's fun talking about another sport like this for sure.
Yeah, happy to do it. Hopefully I have some good news that some of these bets actually hit this time as opposed to the last few days. But, happy to talk about WNBA whenever.
Big second half of the season. It's coming, I believe.
Yeah, I would say it's probably rude to say, like, I'm glad that your CLV hasn't resulted in wins yet, because like you're just due for some regression now. Like, it behooves us. Like, this is we're getting it on the ground floor.
Yeah, you guys are buying low.
Yeah, absolutely. So perfect. Appreciate your time, and yeah, people want to follow you on Twitter at Clive Bixby 41.
Thanks all.
Love it. I should have a WNBA model. Just haven't been able to figure it out.
I know.
Go back through previous seasons. I can't get it to do what I wanted to do. It's much more annoying than I thought it would be.
I know some people who have even done some things with like reffing in the WNBA based on just how certain teams play, and if this is a bit of a whistle happy kind of ref, they were able to take advantage of some second half totals in that case, where just a ton of whistles in the fourth quarter ended up pushing a number well over. So, but yeah, we'll head over to the All England Lawn and Tennis and Croquet Club for some more tennis. I have some small futures I put on. Gosh, who was it? Cam Nori and Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. Is it Alejandro or Alex Sand? I don't know his first name. Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. I played them to win their quarter. Now that it's kind of opening up, that is all I'm sweating right now. And Fokina's losing to Vesely right now. Jesus, buddy, what are we doing? You know what? 5 sets. We got a lot of time to get those back. But on to the best 2 out of 3 on the women's side. Looks like you got a decent card again.
Yeah, just tomorrow. As far as today goes, just about all my bets have started or are finished. And actually, there's one. I'll give you one right now. Allison Risk is going against, with all due apologies for probably screwing this up, Chwalinska. Anyway, the total is 20. I have it at 21. Go ahead and bet the over there. I didn't actually put it on the list because it's supposed to have started about 15 minutes ago. But there's a freebie there if you're listening live. Again, Risk Chwalinska over 20 games. It hypothetically starts in about 5 to 10 minutes. But the rest of these bets are for tomorrow. We'll start with a total here. Magdalena Freck is playing Anna Karolina Schmedlova. Schmedlova got us our 3-set over against Peterson, and I'm going back to the well again. 2 players to me that look fairly evenly matched, have a history of very long matches. Might look at some set overs here. I'll see how the match goes live, but over 21 games looks great. I have this closer to 20, a juicy 21.5. So happy to grab the 21 there. And again, if you have a regular 21.5, that's probably fine too. Hopefully you'll get less than standard juice if you do have to pay for the hook. I'm sorry, if you are stuck with the hook. Bianca Andreescu, one of our futures, doing pretty well. She comes up here. She's about -130. This number's starting to slide out. I wouldn't play this more than maybe -135 against Elena Rybakina. Rybakina did win her first match, but needed a tiebreaker and then a 7-5 there in the second set to get through that match. Just looks just out of sorts. I don't know. It's just been a good season for her. And although these are really pristine conditions, they're great for Andreescu. And I think that she has everything she needs in her bag for the Canadian to take down Rybakina there. So we'll take her as a short favorite. Leslie Kirkhope, we're going to take her to win a set, and then the first set plus 4 games. And, Andy, I don't know how much you handicap tennis these days, but first set plus 4 games is wild. And this is what happens when you have Iga Swiatek living in our lives. And she played great. Came out against Fett. I believe gave her the bagel there in the first set. Absolutely no problems whatsoever in the surface change. And she's a great player, but Kirkhope, again, I'm going to keep going back to the well with this. She has to win 2 games in the first set for me to push this. And you'll see maybe even some 4.5s out there. I played 4 at plus money. I'm happy to take the push if she wins just 2. And the plus 1.5 sets, apologies, didn't put a number outside on this. It's like plus 600. I mean, it's just the numbers here are wild for a player who, with all due respect, is fantastic, but not nearly as good as the market continues to price her. So give me the first set plus 4 games at plus money. Again, take 4.5 if you want, and the plus 1.5 sets. Apologies, didn't put the number on there. Right around plus 550 to plus 600, depending on where you look.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I like a weird bet.
It's like 1.5 to 2.5 for every match. It's 4, like 4 at plus money. I don't know what to do with that.
Sometimes those are broken, especially when they offer stuff like that.
Right, because it's just correlated to the full game spread. I mean, the spread's 8, so they made it 4. That's not nearly the right way to do that.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with you figuring it out.
We'll get there.
Those are fun ones. John Deere Classic. Apologies to anyone who wanted to watch golf this weekend. Well, you know what? I'm still going to bet it. I'm still going to watch it. I don't care how shitty the field is. It's the same thing. Like golfers hitting golf shots. It's not like, I don't know, like if you had the All-Star game and you put the worst players in it instead, like that wouldn't be as good of an NBA All-Star game. You wouldn't have the cool dunks and the alley-oops possibly. But it's still like just these are still good golfers. They're playing a course this weekend on a pro tour, so I'm going to take it in no matter how shitty the field is. And really, I'm the kind of guy who bets matchups down the board anyway, so it's just offering me more of the down the board guys to take a look at. And I do have one off the top I kind of wanted to hit on, and I don't know, a guy I've been betting a little in Tyler Duncan. I don't know if this is, I think it's probably, you talk about, or Clive talks about, it's more of a Seattle fade. This is probably more of a Zach Johnson fade. Like he's not that good anymore. He hasn't had real good. Look, it's not like Tyler Duncan's going to light the world on fire, but man, do I have Zach Johnson way down the board here. His accuracy and his second shots have been horrible. His accuracy kind of finding fairways hasn't been great. He has played here before. He's had success in his career, but just where his game's right now, I have Tyler Duncan well ahead of him. So I'll be looking at this one. Probably should be like minus 125 in my book. So minus 105 on this felt pretty good. I bet this one last night. And then also, I spoke of the bad field. It's not all because they went to Oregon to play LIV. A lot of guys just take this week off because the British Open, which they call the Open, is in 2 weeks. And the DP, which is the European Tour, and the PGA are like not sponsoring, like what do you call it?
Organizing?
Co-organizing, or like they're giving it their blessing. It's a PGA event and it's a DP European World Tour event next week for the Scottish Open. So you can get full FedEx points if you're a PGA golfer or a European golfer. Like it's well worth your time to go play this if you're of anywhere in the field where you want to be getting points. If you're a great player, you're getting those to push you up the rankings so you can get a shitload of money in the playoffs. If you're a mediocre golfer, you need those to push you up the rankings to make sure you can find your way into majors or other big fields. And if you're a bad golfer, you're just doing, the points make a lot of difference as far as keeping your card, not having to play some Monday qualifiers. So it is a points event, and it is for both tours. So everybody is going to play, that can get in, is going to play the Scottish Open next week. So a lot of guys are just flying over this week and playing that. Some are playing in the Irish Open, especially the Irish golfers like Seamus Power and Shane Lowry. It would be they'd probably catch some hell from the media if they didn't play in their home tournament. Their country's home open, and especially with it's been messed up a little with the COVID too. So Kilkenny is hosting an event, and obviously Portland as well. And I didn't get a lot of time to dig into the Irish Open, even though it's good. Shane Lowry probably shouldn't be 8-1 anywhere. He's good, but he's not that good. So if you're betting the Irish Open, I'd find some way to beat the favorite, as they say in horse racing. But in Portland, I did bet some Pat Perez. I found a 30-1 at Bet Online last
You
night.
love Pat Perez.
I do kind
He's
of
been up your list for a while.
I do kind of love him. He does have a good enough
I
game.
haven't heard
to
Doug
win
Gim's
these.
name in a while either. Is he? What is he? Or is he? What's he doing?
He's in Illinois or Iowa. It's in Iowa. This tournament's in Iowa, guys. It can say Illinois all you want. It's pretty much on the river. The Monday qualifier was played in Iowa, so it's an Iowegian tournament. But Pat Perez in Portland, I loved his honesty. He's just like, hey, I think he's going to play relaxed. And, it's going to be hard to tell with some of these guys, the motivation after they get these big checks. And we also said that there's some confusion over if they get these prize pools or if it's just taken off the back end of their giant fat check that they get to begin with. So I don't understand. The motivation is going to be super hard to figure out for a lot of these guys, but just skill-wise, Pat Perez still has it. Brooks Koepka doesn't move the needle for me. I've been betting against him for a month. Bryson is still injured. Obviously, we saw what we're getting out of Usti and some of the other big names. Really, I think Answer has a chance to do well here. But Pat Perez at 30-1 felt pretty good for a guy I've backed quite a bit. And he's had good results of late. The guy actually was playing pretty well, just on the PGA Tour as a bit of an afterthought in some of these. We joke around a lot about using him in one and done every week, and then we go look at the leaderboard and he's shooting up there. But yeah, he's 12th at the Charles Schwab. He was 26th at the Memorial. Like, he's a guy who hasn't missed a cut since the Valero. He's only missed 2 cuts this whole year, and he's played a lot. He did very well, and again, he played well on the West Coast. 6th at the Farmers, 9th at Pebble Beach. So that is Torrey Pines and Pebble Beach. Maybe not super good comps to a course up in the Pacific Northwest, but close enough, and I'll take it. I'll stretch it a little for the narrative and say, go Pat.
Let's do it. I like it. I'm in. P squared. I'm all about it.
Well, and also I made a promise to my grandchildren who don't exist yet that one day I'd be able to show them something that said, hey, I bet on every single live event ever, all the way back to the very first one in London. Like, this is, I've never missed betting on one. This is something that's going to be in the local papers in like 30 years. Meet the man who's bet on every Saudi event ever. So, got to bet it if you got to keep the streak alive.
Can't bet them all if you don't bet them all.
Yeah, you can't bet them all if you don't bet the first 2. So, yeah, Dan says this is before or after you start doing heroin. I'm doing heroin on my deathbed. That was the plan. Like, when I'm really old.
Right.
Because
As soon as I'm too old to like move, or there's any talk at all of me being put in a chair, heroin time.
Yeah. Diminishing returns. Not worried about
Got nothing to lose.
All right. Appreciate you guys hanging out, watching. If you're in the YouTube chat, give us a thumbs up. It was fun having some WNBA talk, and we'll be back tomorrow. We'll pick on some more other sports. I think I have something on my sleeve for tomorrow, and then Friday, Alex is off, but I'm going to definitely make Matt come in and talk about baseball. Give me a bunch of baseball props for the weekend, and I'll have some more golf as we go through the week too. So we'll check you guys tomorrow. See you then.